Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie, and welcome to a celebration of green and gold with Lela Norris from Stampin' Up. Hi, Lela.
Hi, Mel.
I said from Stampin' Up, but you're my friend first. You just
I
happen to
know.
be.
We've known each other a long time. But I understood what you meant, so hopefully we're gonna yell things.
Yeah, we're focusing on some Stampin' Up product this month, all culminating or leading up to a virtual kind of crop hangout November 1st and 2nd. So for those of you that are interested, check out the information below. Specifically, we want you to check out Layla's Facebook group, which is where we're going to post a lot of the activities leading up to the event, as well as the link to the actual Zoom virtual crop itself. We've already recorded 2 videos previously, so be sure to check those out. One of them talks about the event in general and shares the product we're using, the suite, the collection of
Collection.
products. Yeah, that we're playing along with. All of those links will be in the description below as well if you are interested in playing along with those and wish to see what Stampin' Up has to offer. And then we also just posted last week some inspiration using those projects, featuring some scrapbook layout sketches and our interpretations of them.
Right, right. And that was so fun because it was really interesting how we chose what sketches we were going to use and got to see each other's pages because we didn't show each other until we got ready to do this. So I'm anxious to see this week's cards and see what we came up with.
So I found a collection of sketches that someone on Pinterest collated for us. So there was quite a few to choose from. And ironically, maybe we didn't choose a single sketch to be the same. So I think that's pretty awesome. So you're going to get a lot of different inspiration and a lot of different sketches. So again, head over to Layla's Facebook group. The link to that Pinterest will be posted over there. And of course, we'll also share the specific sketches that we used as we go through. So what was your first sketch that you chose and how did you interpret it?
I have got to tell you, I don't really remember which was the first one I chose, so I think I'm just gonna pick one of them that I like. How about we start there?
Okay, sounds good.
So this one is the one I'll start with.
Okay.
And I like this because instead of the banner, I ended up using a ribbon, which I thought was kind of fun, something different. Usually I'm a little more literal when it comes to card sketches, not scrapbooking sketches. But card sketches, I tend to be a little more literal, and they had a scallop piece of paper there, and I decided to use the ribbon and I like the feel of that mallet. It just looks kind of cool on the card. And then of course I used the thread again this week. If you watched last week's video, you saw that I used quite a bit of it on my scrapbook layout and I used it again for my card. And of course we talked about these cute little embellishments, dot embellishments, and I added those with some of the gold paper this week. So, and a little bit of the stamping. I chose to die cut and stamp the leaves that I put behind the tag.
I really like how, I don't want to call it simple because I don't think it's a simple card, but I guess what's the right word? What am I trying to say? It's because there's a lot of layers, right? So you've got a bunch of different patterns. So it's definitely not that, but I think maybe because it's monochromatic, it just reads a little more simpler, if that makes sense.
It
Or
does. I love this sketch, and you'll see that I used it again on a few of the other cards. And just those two layers back behind whatever you're putting as your focal point really sparked my interest, and to your point, seemed really flexible to me on different ways you could add and what you added there. So that was kind of fun. I actually used the vellum. So my 2 layers on this card are the vellum paper that goes with the collection.
so I chose, what is it here? It says pause Dream Enjoy sketch number 5. It is a very simple sketch. Like, it's literally 2 pieces of cardstock with a ribbon along the border. That's what I did. Literally.
I said sometimes that's fun, right? Like it's fun to come up with something simple and then you know, hey, that turned out great and there you are.
Yeah, so I think my thought before I share the card, and you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about, but the paper is really pretty. So that allows us to shine. And then we were using some of that, what is it, like 3/4 inch satin ribbon, I think?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is beautiful. And it's a pretty big band. And so this just really lends itself to it. So I made 2 of the exact same cards. And that is how they turned out.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Right now, the
Yes.
card sketch didn't have anything for sentiment, so I used one of the small tag dies from the collection and just stamped love and joy on there. And then I pulled some enamel dots from my stash because we all know that I went crazy on other projects with the ones from the kit, and they're all gone. Yeah.
So they're very easy to use up. My package is gone as well, and I'm really hoping they're coming back in stock here before our crop event because I think those are something very fun to play with. So I love that ribbon sets your card off so beautifully, right? It makes it rich, and that little sentiment gives that card so many different ways you could send that or use that, you know, Thanksgiving, going into Christmas, thinking of you.
Yeah. And if you're in a time crunch, because I don't know about you, but if you leave your Christmas cards till the last minute, these would be super fast to use and a great use of scraps.
And if by some chance they got there after the holiday, they would still be applicable.
Absolutely. Especially
Just saying.
Especially if you take a less Merry Christmas kind of sentiment. This one said love and joy. So that could totally apply to New Year's, right?
Yeah, very much, very much.
Okay, what's your second card?
So my second card is sketch 52. I do know that one. And again, I had that ribbon out on my desk. So I think you're gonna see that in in my cards here. So I'll show everybody the card, and then of course we'll post pictures of it on my website and down below. But I like this one because I wanted to use a couple of the different tags. And so I did that. I layered them, and then I was using a few of the scraps. So I layered those up here. Again, those strips, right? That just caught my eye. And I backed this I with the vellum. If I think you can see that I have a very busy piece on the background, but to tone it down a little bit, added the vellum. So I really liked that because then by adding the green layers back in, it brought out the background of the card, and of course I added the clear dots because I did at this point in time have a few left.
That's one of my favorite ways to use vellum as kind of a way to tone down very busy paper. For sure.
Look at that. Didn't that work out well? Yeah.
So I also chose a sketch in the 50s. I chose sketch 57. This was another very simple card. Again, 2 pieces of cardstock, but instead of a horizontal line, this one had a diagonal line. And then it had a snowflake as the representation of the embellishment. So what I love about these kind of cards is you can't help but get 2 for 1, right? Because when you cut that diagonal, you automatically will have the opposite for the other card, right? So that's what you're going to see with this one, is that I cut 2 panels. Well, actually, because I did this on green card bases, I actually only cut 1 panel of the dot paper, randomly picked a diagonal, cut it, and then swapped it. And so these are basically the same design. I just changed the focal point a little bit. In this one here, I used one of the dies to cut the base. And then of course I fussy cut more of the bells and the greenery. So no stamping again, other than the Merry Christmas up at the top.
It's funny that you did that because Stampin' Up! Has really been pushing that. And in this paper pack, there is some of the paper that has the greenery, and the die cuts that come with the stamps that match the paper actually cut those out of the paper so that there are people who don't want to stamp or we're in the mood to not stamp, right? And we can have a way to either fussy cut or die cut out those elements. And I've noticed that they've really been using that idea quite a bit. They always offer paper that can be die cut for items, and you can replace stamping with those die cut items.
The only thing I will have to say that I have a little tiny complaint about was just a tiny complaint was those papers that had the images that you could fussy cut. They had a white base on them, but the cardstock was vanilla based.
Like, oh, true.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I am one of those people that doesn't generally like to mix, white and vanilla. Yes.
Yeah. So this one here, because I had so much white with the fussy cutting, it didn't bother me so much on this vanilla base. Plus, I just had a lot. But when I fussy cut these ones out, it just really bothered me. So what I actually did in this case was I just took some green ink and went around the edges so I didn't have to cut it precisely.
Great idea. Yeah.
And then that just kind of blended these edges so that they look more like individual pine needles than, like having that fussy cut border around it.
Yeah. You used those gold bells so beautifully last week on your scrapbook pages, and I see those again on your card that you cut out, and I love that. Love that. If I hadn't used up my paper, I would sure be doing it. I might have a scrap around here somewhere, but I love that idea, Mel.
It worked out pretty well, actually. Anyway, so that is card number 2.
I love the card too. Did you have it where it flips open instead of maybe side to side?
Yeah.
I love that. Yes. I don't do that very often. I'm caught up in that open from the side, and I could tell when you showed those, and I really like that idea.
Which reminds me, I didn't talk about this. This is my favorite way to use up little scraps at the end, is just take little bits and pieces and decorate the interior of your card. I have a couple reasons for it. 1, I just think it's pretty. 2, I love using up the scraps. And 3, I don't feel intimidated about filling the whole space. I can write a shorter message and not feel like I need to write more.
Okay, now we know your secret. I like it, but that's a great way to use the scraps because it really does look pretty. I just really like the way that card lined up. So I definitely want to try that. I did like the bells that came in the stamp set. And you saw, if you watched the scrapbooking video last week, I used or die cut some of those and used those on my layout. And I also did a card with those same bells. It's a little, so you can see them here.
Okay, so I have questions. You know me by now. I have questions. So what did you stamp them with?
I used a very, it's called Basic Beige. So it's almost like, I know they call it a beige, but for me, it's almost like a very, very, very pale gray. And I stamped just a little bit of the bell in that same color, because I didn't really want it to stand out too much. If you turned one of them over, you'll see that I did use a darker color and I didn't like it. So I used the same color ink on the paper. And then I tied those on with that thread again.
The top one is loose.
Yeah. Yep. The top one is loose, just to give it.
That's fun. I love that. So when you stamp the bells, it's a 2-step, like there's 2 stamps that you could stamp to layer. Did you do both, or did you only just do the one? You just did the one.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I had die cut the bells, so I just didn't feel like it needed that outer stamp, right? I felt like that outer bell stamp was if you didn't die cut them. So I only used the interior stamp for it. And then, of course, my favorite thread, if you haven't noticed that I've used that in just about every project. I guess that was fun for me. I took one of the tags that come in that die cut set and stamped the sentiment, part of the sentiment in a neutral or in the monochromatic color.
I love that. You made your own paper, basically.
Yes, yes, yes. And then added another little sentiment down here, but I wanted to use one of the very small sentiment spots so it didn't lend itself for too much. So that's why I added some to the paper.
Nice. And at the bottom, is that just a strip of paper or is that a ribbon?
Ribbon. That's a strip of ribbon. It's just like this really clear white. It just needed something, and but not a lot because this paper is pretty busy. And I was going to use a strip of the vellum, right? That white vellum, because again, it just needed something. But this little piece of ribbon happened to be laying on my desk, and I'm like, oh, that's just perfect.
There you go. It looked like it has sparkles or something on it, or did
It
you add
does.
that
It does have a
afterwards?
little bit of, yeah, it does actually have a little bit of sparkle in the ribbon. So it went well with the
Yeah,
clear dots and the
very
sparkles. So,
nice.
yep, yeah,
Very
that was
nice.
fun. Okay, so I did 53, but after I got done, the top needed something. So you'll see that I had to add something up above the scallops. So I did scallop cut the bottom. And of course, you'll see that I added that thread again. I added your favorite gold paper as a layer underneath the ribbon,
Yep.
just to give it a little bit of sparkle. And then again, I wanted to use this tag. It had been laying on my desk. You know, I die cut out a bunch of them and it was still there. So it got put on this card. And then I added some of the die cut greenery that I had left from the page I did. If you can see the little bit of
Yeah.
extra greenery I added. So
I love that tag.
yes, I do love that shape. And the other thing I was going to say is I love that even though this is a die cut on top of the paper that has the same print, just kind of felt like it added some dimension without overwhelming it.
Yeah, it just looks like it's part of the background, just like a bunch of leaves that have just been layered on top of each other. So mine actually, surprisingly, I got to pull up the sketch here, is not that much different than yours, even though it's a completely different sketch. Isn't that funny?
I just love that. It was just so fun to see that we picked some of the different ones. And I will have to admit, I was a little bit intimidated when I started because this did seem a lot of monochromatic colors and what was I going to do with it. But I will tell you, and I think we talked about this before, when you take a set of papers, right? And you say, I'm going to use this. It's interesting, right? Where your mind goes and how you can put it all together. And it really kind of narrowed down the choices. So they started coming together a little easier.
I think in some ways it almost forces you to be more creative. I always allude to myself. I always call myself a lazy scrapbooker. I'm really not lazy, but that's what I call myself because I think I have this thing in my brain that says I should be doing more, right? Like I should be using all the things and I don't. I will, right? I will often opt for an easier route. So like if I've got something on my table, I'm going to use that instead of getting up to go get something different, right?
Sure.
So I think when you have a kit and you're telling yourself you need to use this, it forces you to try and come up with new ideas for how to use the supplies. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to do this every time because it is a challenge. And we did kind of, part of the challenge is to try and use it all up, right? So next week's video is we're going to show you what else we made with the kits and hopefully have used up most, if not all of the kit. So that'll be interesting. Be sure to click on the notification bell so that you know when that one goes up. But yeah, I think that's what's fun about this is to try and get yourself to be thinking outside the box, right? How can I make this interesting? So I use Sketch 18. When you first look at it, it's what do you call it? A portrait. And I flipped it so that it is landscape. It's pretty much an exact interpretation, except she has a circle. And instead I used that die that we both seem to like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I really love the shape of that one.
Yeah. And so they had this band, right? The layering of the cardstock behind. And then I just felt it needed a little bit of ribbon with a tag. You almost have to always put either something, right? Either a bow or a twine bow or an enamel dot or something. And I decided to use the ribbon. Very simple card again. It's just cardstock, die cut, the one label, and then the stamp sentiment.
Yeah, but it looks so pretty. Like I said, that die cut is one of the really cute ones in there, just a little bit of a different shape. And yeah, it gave you a lot of room for a sentiment, which I thought was fun.
And I think it's got like the little dotted border around it, which I just think it elevates it it makes it a little bit more sophisticated.
Yes, for sure. I didn't really notice that until I cut it out, right? And then you cut it out and you see it and you're like, oh, that looks really cute.
Okay, so now we're moving on to, I think, our last one, right?
Right.
This is so funny, you guys. We literally didn't plan any of this, and we both did 4 sketches, even though we had no direction that was what we were going for. It just happened that way. My last one was sketch number 34. It's not that much different than the one I just showed you, other than the circle is smaller. So for instance, in this one, it would probably be roughly the size of this. And what happened is the band's a little bit bigger and it would cut off this piece, but otherwise it's basically the same sketch. When I was playing with all those die cut pine bow things or whatever, my first thought was I need to make a wreath. When I saw this layout, I thought, okay, I could use the circle to kind of be the center point of the wreath, and I'll layer these images around. So it ends up proportionately that my wreath is much bigger than the circle, but this is my favorite card. This one I am quite pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's beautiful. That absolutely looks like a wreath. It looks like a front door.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So you can see I went to town on the little red berries because, it was only appropriate. I also pulled in some Cloud Whip, which is from scrapbook.com, texture paste, and I added it kind of as little bits on the edges to kind of give it that snowy look. Yeah.
Yes, I see that now. Oh, how cool.
Quite happy with how that one turned out. And then the sentiment, of course, is from the sentiment stamp set, and it just fit perfectly in the middle of the image. And then I just layered up all the different patterns. And again, I think we can get away with it because the colors all blend together and they read more monochromatic.
Yes, for sure. That is beautiful. Like, you did such a great job with those dies. You make me wish I had an electronic die cutter so I could cut them all out and layer them all up. But
you could have gotten an arm workout.
I could have cranked them. That's right. That's right. That's
well,
right. I did crank a few more. So you will see that I used a few more on the Use It Up coming up videos. So because I was trying to use them up, right?
right. I have to give you kudos for using the stamp set. I actually, to be honest, I don't think I used this one. I used the dies, but I don't think I used the stamp set at all. Everything that you see was fussy cut from the paper
I love that. Like, again, at least with Stampin' Up, it's really trendy right now. Like I mentioned, every paper they have where if you, for whatever reason want to do that, right? Don't want to stamp and want to use the die cuts or the fussy cut. They're making it doable, and you did, right? You showed that off. I mean, those bells are my favorite cut like that. I'm definitely going to have to see if I have one more scrapped and at least a couple of those bells, but.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the bells, using embossing powder, you probably could get a very similar look with the stamping. It's just, got to pull all that stuff out. So anyways, those are the card inspiration for this week. I hope all of you enjoyed the inspiration and are feeling inspired to go and give your hand. Again, check out Lela's Facebook group. We'll have photos of the projects as well as the sketches themselves over there. We'll include the link to the Pinterest pin with all the extra sketches. So if you're not feeling inspired by the ones we chose, go for it. We'd love to see what you're up to. And be sure to subscribe because we still have one more video coming out next week, I think. And November 1st and 2nd.
An interesting one, right? Because that's a Use It Up one. So kind of a free-for-all to see how we used up all the rest of those papers. But I really do hope that that you get inspiration from the card sketches and we get to see what you do with them, because it's been very fun for Melanie and I to see which ones we chose and why, and then what we did with them or how we used them, either exactly like they were or, you know, kind of mixed it up. So I always
Yeah.
love to see that. Feel free to post it on my page, no matter what paper you use.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out with us, you guys. We'll see you next week. And until then, happy crafting.